And welcome to the spotlight on the one, the only Mr. Ivan Buchta. How you doing, buddy?
Hello, Boydy. I'm doing absolutely fine, and I'm ready to be interrogated about Chernarus today.
Have you ever done a interview about the creation of the map before?
I believe I did, or it's a topic which is sort of connected with me as one of the guys who originally created it for Arma 2. So definitely, I was one of the guys who had spoken about the creation of Chernarus before. However, I think it's been a while, a couple of years perhaps.
Mm-hmm. And a lot has changed with that map for the DayZ version of it. But what we are going to do is just start off with finding out a little bit more about you. So how long have you been working for BI for, Ivan?
Well, it's been more than 18 years of intense labor and funny stories and more intense labor. Practically,
you weren't one of the devs who got held up in Greece. In Greece, were you?
Yeah, one of the two.
You were.
Fortunately, yeah. Fortunately, it's over.
I thought I recognized the name when I heard it, but I like to not. It's kind of bad because I'd like to not research too much, because that is one of the most amazing out there stories. Which, okay, we've just kind of sidetracked a bit here. Can you talk about that? Like, what was your experience with that? Because that was insane when I heard about it.
It definitely was. Like, it was very unfortunate misunderstanding, and we got a lot of bad luck. Eventually, it was outweighed by some really good luck and help of some really great people, to whom I'm eternally grateful. Also, my colleague Martin Pezlar, actually very skilled environment designer and digital artist. His great personality. He has awesome sense of humor and definitely like.
Is he still with BI?
No. I believe he's currently working on hunting games in a Nine Rock game studio. Thanks to Martin and also thanks to our families, colleagues, other game devs from the Czech Republic. Plenty of politicians actually, but we don't know much about it. Like it ended all well, and I made it to the birth of my second daughter in time.
Your wife wouldn't have forgiven you if you didn't. It doesn't matter. You're being held on spying charges in a foreign country. You have to be there regardless.
True. Well, fortunately, I made it.
Because a lot of people don't understand, but it's something they forget about. But you do have to be very careful when you're taking photography in foreign countries, don't you?
Well, my wife definitely says so. All of really like this unnormal circumstances, it would have been probably like dismissed as a very minor thing, handled by a fee and deletion of those few photographs, but it turned into a big thing because of some very unfortunate circumstances, and that's about it.
Well, I'm glad that that's all over. So that's one hell of a story that you're going to be able to tell the grandkids down the line.
Well, fortunately, it's a past. In the meantime, we've managed to do a lot of great work, and it's quite interesting to look at it from the time perspective. By the time I was at Bohemia for like 6 years, now it's been 18 years, so we past that, we've had a lot of games, a lot of projects, a lot of exciting things, Chernarus and its growth included.
Have you ever put an Easter egg in the game at all related to that incident?
No. It's you don't joke about some things. We are just glad that it ended the way it ended. We were just waiting for the court hearing for 5 years. It was quite excruciating experience. Just gets done.
How long were you there for?
We were there for 4 months and a couple of days.
Wow.
But, of course, it was like nothing I would recommend as a traveling experience.
No, definitely not. And like I said before, just be careful, folks. Make sure you are aware of a lot of countries do have very strict guidelines on what you can photograph, and just make sure you know what's in the background and what the state of affairs is in that country at the time as well, because you can, like Ivan here, be completely innocent and just doing normal photography, and then all of a sudden find yourself in hot water. Yeah.
True. Well, visit real life Chernarus. Take as many photos as you wish. Now even the owner of the legendary Starry Suburban knows.
Yep. So, how did you end up in this industry?
It wasn't a complete accident, but the path was actually a couple of years of tinkering with the games. Of course, first I started playing games, then I realized that there are some games which can be modded. So I started editing Doom levels. Found some of them recently. Yeah, like
oh yeah, that's a classic.
You know, I was like 14 to 17 on a middle school, and everybody was playing Doom, even like run the demo out of a diskette, 3.5 inch, and it was fascinating. And I ended up with Doom editor utilities on my first computer, and it was very interesting to actually mold the space and create experiences.
Sorry, I just need to clarify. You're from the Czech Republic?
Yes, I'm from the Czech Republic, Czech national.
Yep. So what year was this you're talking about?
Please say again. Apologies.
Sorry, what year was this roughly? Around about the mid-90s, mid to late 90s?
It was the first half of the 90s.
Yep. So you remember quite well, when the all the restrictions were lifted after the collapse of the Iron Wall and that. So this was probably a very crazy time for you as a young lad, and getting access to a lot of stuff you hadn't had before. And
true. I was a kid, so we weren't so aware of the politics and stuff. So for us, it was the fact that when I was around 10, suddenly we opened to the Western world and started communicating, and the civilization from the West started pouring in full speed, and suddenly computers were a thing, video games. Of course, I was playing video games on an 8-bit computer of my uncle, even before. But it's suddenly we were not behind Iron Curtain. We were there to take part, communicate.
Because it's not like there was none of that tech there before. Like, a lot of people don't even realize Tetris is a Russian game. It was invented by a Russian game dev. And there's an amazing story behind how that game managed to get onto the Nintendo, which I absolutely love. A couple of people pretending to go there on tourist visas and finally managed to track this guy down. But it must have been an amazing, like I remember myself, as a young boy, I was born in the 1970s, and video games were just going right from the pinball era to the video games, Pac-Man and Gallagher and all those very early ones that went mainstream. And for you, even though that was the 90s, and for us in the West, video games were quite well developed by then, it must have been a similar sort of experience, just this flood of titles, and to find yourself getting into that's actually quite impressive from my perspective, as a cushy Westerner sitting over here in Australia. But there's this young lad in the mid-90s getting into game dev at such a young age.
Well, it was just a hobby. You're just trying to create some Doom levels. Later in 2001, when Operation Flashpoint was released, I got really hooked by the game. It was fascinating. It was very different. It featured an open terrain on which you can, using the editor, you can do anything within the limits of the military simulation it provided. And I got hooked, honestly. And when there was the first terrain tool released by the community, I was at the university studying environment sciences, environmental protection, and I was tinkering with the geoinformatics. So I kind of naturally gravitated towards trying to export some data and importing them to this tool. And one of the first published experiments was a small island called Drachenfels, which is still part of a Cold War yarn mod, I believe. And it was very small thing. Later, I created Supersari Island, which ended up as a loose part of the FDF mod, the Finnish Defense Forces mod for Operation Flashpoint, and then as a member of the Czechoslovak People's Army mod, I took part in creating some environments inspired by the Iraq and
this is
Middle
all
East.
before you started working for BI.
Yes, but
Yep.
but the path leads there.
Yeah.
We got noticed. We got noticed by David Legaty at that time. He was the head of the Anabase studio, responsible for the virtual battle space, which was born in Australia. And he approached our modding team with offer to take part in the development of Terrain Pack 3. So all the Iraqi assets, some of our work went to VBS and never saw the light of day in the community way. And based on this work, I was approached by Marek Spaniel, and he offered me to work for Bohemia as environment guy. It was at the time when the studio was working on Game 2, and the new set of tools and new technology Ondřej Spaniel, his brother, developed was also focused on the using of geographic data of real life terrains. It was needed for VBS, I guess, but I believe there was also this fascination of Marek and Ondřej to recreate the reality in combat more precisely than just putting it together using purely just some tools and designer's imagination. And this is how we probably establish the quality of our terrain, be it for Arma or DayZ. They are mostly grounded in the real life geography, which makes them truly unique in the world of video games. So before I actually started working for Bohemia, I was exchanging email with Marek, and I was sending him samples of geodata. He was sending me back some simple visualization like orthophoto and the terrain with some nice sunset. And this probably lured me to stop working at the university and joining Bohemia Interactive. Because
And you've never looked back.
I occasionally do look back. I've being a game dev, I still feel my academic roots. I did some natural sciences for just a few years during my PhD studies, which I did not finish because of game dev. But you know, it's just it was a very good time because I was able to learn a lot. I dare say that I was very lucky to study all kinds of things related to environment, and it very naturally led to I dare say very special approach to how we have portrayed our virtual landscapes. It wasn't just let's make arena and let's focus on level design. It was imbued with the world building and narrative design from the very start. You know, how did the village develop? Why is this forest here? Is the terrain hydrologically correct? Do the streams flow as they should? So all these considerations, which I was lucky to learn at the university, we could utilize this approach in creating our virtual landscapes, Chernarus included. It was actually the first terrain which was published and which was based on the geographic data.
Well, that brings us into a nice segue into this. Can you walk us through the creative process when designing the Chernarus map? What were some of the key inspirations for you?
Chernarus, as I've mentioned, started as an idea for a terrain for Game 2, and all the team had was the name. Like it's a party on Belarus, just in White Russia, but
Yep.
Black Russia. When I was chatting with Marek,
So that's what Chernarus means, is White
yes,
Russia.
yeah,
But
yeah.
again,
Well, Black Russia, Black Russia.
Oh, okay. Yep.
It's like Belarus means like a white, bieli,
Yep.
bieli, white. I suggested that maybe it would be interesting to grab a stretch of land close to my hometown, Ústí nad Labem in North Bohemia. I grew up there. I was hiking there from my early childhood with my amazing parents and my sister. And I knew it very intimately. During my university studies, I joined an airsoft group, and the guys were that milsim kind. So we were doing a lot of walking and very little shooting. But we did it mostly in the real life Chernarus because everybody was living around or in it. So based on this, I dare say very intimate and long-term knowledge of this particular rugged part of Czech Republic, I suggested that it might actually be interesting from the gameplay perspective, because it's very variegated, lots of valleys, very dense road network, plenty of picturesque views, and everything feels condensed. So at that time I was aware of the view distance in Operation Flashpoint being a huge factor. So you had to have enough detail close enough for you to actually enjoy the landscape. Otherwise, it's just disappearing in the mist.
Yep. I kind of remember that from the early days of DayZ standalone. The view distance, everything past a few hundred meters was just, not the greatest.
So we experimented with the terrain. Then I joined Bohemia, helped to finalize Sahrani terrain for Arma 1. And then I returned to this terrain, and it was originally meant to be the DLC for Arma 1. After Queen's Gambit, we wanted to bring in some Marines fighting in a fictional semi-landlocked terrain. And I started working on it using the geographic data. Eventually, a change has come, and the decision was we will start a new Arma instead. We enlarged Chernarus. It still remained semi-landlocked. And from circa 2006 to 2009, early months, we were working on Arma 2. You were mentioning inspirations. Well, I would say that Chernarus would never become reality without my parents dragging me there and showing me all those cool places there. So the physical contact with the terrain was definitely a huge inspiration. Playing Flashpoint, which led me to the fascination of this like a free form open world design. But during creation of the terrain, of course, we established it as a post-Soviet state set on the further east than Europe. So we were looking into the architecture of Ukraine, Russia, Far East, Siberia. At that time, Stalker game was published, and some of the sceneries there were mind-blowing, and I still remember some of the locations and their gritty beauty. Currently, you have this hobby of people who visit derelict, abandoned places. So this aesthetic of decay was something which had a very strong impact on Chernarus. Eastern Europe and even the Central Europe and my surroundings in industrial areas abandoned in 1990s because there was like no point in continuing some businesses, so they were falling apart. There are places around my old hometown which look a bit like Zon from Stalker. This all kind of converged together with the fascination of the nature and admiration of natural beauty and
Well,
this
that
whole
sort of
land
ties in
Chernarus.
with this, in that, the cultural representation. How did you ensure the accuracy and authenticity when creating the Chernarus environment and being Eastern European? This is something that a lot of folks, like even I went on a holiday a few years back, and one of the places we visited was Russia, and I mentioned it to people. They go, "Oh, why would you go there?" Not leaving the political sides out of it. It's like, it's a beautiful country, regardless of the politics and that. But all of Eastern Europe, a lot of that heavy influence of that Eastern European style. It's something that was a bit of a bold choice here in some aspects for an international game, because you see most of it. If it doesn't have a big USA flag in it somehow, a lot of gamers will overlook it. Whereas Arma sort of bucked that trend back then with going for the Eastern European feel for Arma 2 and that. And I think it's awesome, myself personally, but especially when you find out that so many of these locations are real life buildings, and the fire station and the Northeast Airfield, and they're all based on even the police station. I think that's from somewhere in Finland from memory. It's a Finnish police station model. There's a guy on Twitter.
It's currently on the Russian territory, but it's a police station from Vyborg, formerly Viipuri, and originally it's Finland, of course.
Yep.
It's quite a broad question, actually. Of course, I knew the landscape. We were able to go there. We made a couple of trips with the artists and environment designers. So the skeleton of the land, the structure, we were able to learn it firsthand, which was definitely great. Then we did extensive research where definitely my expertise helped. And I was the only guy for that at the time. Eventually, the team grew, and more people stepped in and added their own ideas and expertise. But the fact that we were aware of what to look for in terms of architecture, urbanism, natural species, here I would say the knowledge is power. And we had a lot of knowledge, and we were able to reflect it in our work, in our plans. Paradoxically, Chernarus is far from perfect when it comes to world building and environment storytelling and the narrative design. At least it's Arma 2 version, because we came up with this background of national conflict between a Russian-speaking minority and Russian/Czech-speaking majority, and Chernarus portrays a disputed territory, or territory where there is an insurgency going on, and I have to admit that we weren't really meticulous about, like, for example, having Czech and Russian present in the same time. We were more after the effect sometimes. So we have just the Russian language signage, right, in Cyrillics, just for fun. So I guess plenty of people learn Cyrillics because of DayZ. And we really wanted to have something exotic even to us. And as you've mentioned, there are parts of Russia which are really beautiful, and it's definitely like a very, very exotic, even for a Central European. When you look at it, it's very, very different country. So it was combination of first-hand experience and the knowledge, and how we processed our inspirations. truth is that as a being European, probably and being from a different background than a career game developer also helped, because it allowed me to actually realize, okay, I need to learn something. We need to look at this and figure out that, because being even surrounded by very different cultures, different languages, you kind of think differently. You admit that there may be vast cultural differences, and you can kind of sense that things are slightly different from your country, and these places are actually very, very close and reachable. So according to our personal experience and European nature, we were able to step out of our let's say zone, take the best of inspiration from our environment, our surroundings, and combine it with something which was new and different even to us.
I picked this next question because you did sort of answer a bit of that in giving that with the overarching story or theme that you envisaged for Chernarus and how that manifested in the environment and gameplay, because some of the locations that you created are just truly iconic. Even, I've still got a soft spot in my heart for the old original Northwest Airfield. And I know a lot of early DayZ players do as well, even the old Northeast Airfield with the hangars and all the rest of it. But was there anything you can go into detail on the way you designed it at the time?
Certainly, particularly for the airfields, you need to have airfields on an Arma map, so that jets have somewhere to land and to take off from. And there were many other considerations like that, like having a diverse road network with a good hierarchy, making sure all the places are
from memory, there were
accessible for
3
the vehicles.
airfields on the original, weren't there? Buchta Airstrip, Northwest Airfield, and the Northeast Airfield.
Exactly.
They were the only 3? Yep.
Yeah. And they were also spaced so that in case we would ever want to fight for the whole map, they would offer some sort of basis, and there was this symmetry imbued into the layout for the purpose of the Capture the Island mod we co-developed in Arma 1 with Mike Melvin, the original author of the CTI. It was called Warfare. So, for example, now in Arma Reforger we have Conflict, and it's basically the same theme: capture the territory and prevail over the other side. Takes some time, takes some resources. There's some economy as part of the scenario. So we even have these considerations. But back to your questions. We naturally needed to have some plausible reason for American Marines to step in, so we invented a civil war fueled by the insurgency, and we took a lot of inspiration in the history of the wars of former Yugoslavia in 1990s. It was still fresh in our memory, and we just followed the historical patterns in introducing something plausible. So we don't have much stuff, but whatever we created to reflect the situation. So we have Russian Defense Forces army, which combines equipment of the West, some newly added helmets, and some of the and some old and Soviet stuff. We had Chedaki movement supplied by some rogue Soviet Russian military branch, supplied with the camouflages which we knew from the Chechen Wars footage. Naturally, Americans had their mandate. They were cooperating with CDF. Things have escalated, but in the land, you can, for example, see billboards promoting the Chernarus Red Star movement. you also see some completely harmless things like advertisements for alcohol and cigarettes,
Yep.
which was part of the reason why Arma 2 has such a high age rating, and we try to rather than like compose something which would serve just the gameplay, to create something which would have its own intrinsic value, which could be used in various ways. I think after our experience of part of the team with Arma 1 and Operation Flashpoint before, we kind of realized we lived in reality of creating something which would be usable by the modders of various kind in the future.
What was the story behind the inclusion of the Rifty shipwreck?
It was something which happened as a change from the original Arma 2 map to the dedicated DayZ terrain, and it was one of the ideas which spawned during 2013 as a result of the effort to add more detail, correct some bugs, and generally to make the terrain richer. There was a wreck before, if I remember correctly. It's just the DayZ team, as it was established, wanted some new landmark, something bigger and better. And I think at the time it was Dean Hall who got somehow contacted by someone who was able to do that, or it was maybe even like his idea. I don't remember much. I only remember I was doing some suggestions and feedback for how it should be positioned. But it's been happening in the time when I was gradually detaching myself from the DayZ development in favor of other things. So yeah.
So what were the biggest technical challenges you faced while creating Chernarus? You mentioned before about like with the view distance, and one of the things that I've always said about with BI is you guys are always very ambitious when it comes to your projects. Like DayZ itself, they had big ambitions and they had to scale it back because they realized it just wasn't capable, and then they had to, basically forget the roadmap and that. But back to the Chernarus map, back to the creation of it, you obviously had your own visions and other people had your visions, but there would obviously have been limitations based on the engine and what the new engine was going to be capable of, and the Arma 2 game. And yeah, if you could just go over that for us.
Of course. Arma 2 was supposed to be released on the on Xbox, Xbox 360, successor of the first generation of the console. We had some builds. It eventually did not fructify in any commercial build because simply the engine was not really fit for such a console. The hardware demands were much higher, but even with them, we had to optimize the data and be very reasonable about like what we are rendering and how. So, for example, this natural landscape is very forested. And although we made all kinds of clearings, and we had to come up with clever solutions to, for example, introduce the special forestry models, which would be optimized for rendering in huge numbers. Also, we helped ourselves with plenty of tricks. So, for example, compared to real-life forests, our forests on Chernarus were much sparser. And instead of like having like a very, let's say, narrow forest variants of trees, the canopies were pretty wide, so they would still cover the space overhead and feel like the forest. So the proportions of trees are very different from reality, but for a reason. Models use simpler shaders than we've had at the time, or some of them. There were features in the engine allowing us to, for example, let's say, take some shortcuts in rendering huge amount of vegetation. There were flags allowing us to render landmarks or on higher distance. We are talking about TV tower, castles, which are so big, so voluminous that they constitute a part of the terrain silhouette on a greater distance, and they work as landmarks. But
Green Mountain would be the most famous one.
yeah, but it was like on Jotto as well. Pick like 5 objects like this and don't do much more. Besides the forests, roads were a big challenge, not in terms of performance, but in terms of making, because if you look at Sahrani, it was still built out of the segments, which had some, several lengths, several radiuses, and they were kind of arranged in succession, more or less manually. Now we had hundreds of kilometers of roads represented by vectors. So my colleague Enrico Ture, who later worked in the Keen Software House on Space Engineers, during his amazing time at Bohemia Interactive, he was of amazing help and created a script or tool which processed the vector data, generated segments to fit best, and composed the road network in the game. So these were the first, let's say, first attempts to actually use the geographic data, the digital maps, in creating our terrains. We were generating the forests out of the polygons, and we were generating the roads out of the lines. What we have now, for example, in Enfusion, all those generators, spline-based roads, this all started both spiritually and technically in Arma 1 and later in like bigger numbers in Arma 2.
It's funny on that, because like with DayZ, obviously the roads are not as important because vehicles aren't the most common on the average vanilla server, but on an Arma server, vehicles are a massive part of it. So to find out you had almost like a semi-automated system is quite interesting to hear.
Well, you would be surprised how important are roads even in DayZ. Roads, forest layout, position of the villages, they constitute the man-made landscape we know. So even for the navigation, it's important to do them right, portray them correctly. At some point, like around circa 2014, 2015, we were experimenting with these generators in broader scale, and I took the terrain of Chernarus, created rule sets for Stone Age landscape as a thought experiment, because I've read some book about how our landscape looked like during the Ice Ages and in the Stone Age. So I wanted to recreate that landscape, and knowing the real life Chernarus intimately, at first I was unable to realize what I'm looking at when the Stone Age vegetation started emerging, because you are used to certain patterns, to certain metrics.
Mm-hmm.
The roads are axes and they are visible. There are trees and bushes arranged along them. You have some patches of forest, and the forest. It's quite a volume if you even if you look at it. It's not just the green stuff on the ground. It actually elevates the terrain. It creates a visual barrier. It alters the horizon. If tree is like 30 meters high, then it does something. If let's say if the shapes are in tens to hundreds meters in the landscape, suddenly you have tens of meters of vegetation, and it makes significant impact.
It's a great way to put some fresh legs into an old map, isn't it? Like I remember the first time I played Winter Chernarus, I was getting lost, and for the majority of DayZ players with hundreds and thousands of hours on that map, you can borderline navigate without a compass or map. You don't even need to have the map pop up on screen. But the first time I played Winter Chernarus, I got a bit cocky and I was running around. But because the landscape had changed so much, as you said, all those roads and everything like that, it was just harder to make everything out. I found myself getting lost again. So it was like, okay, I've got to go find a compass and a map. That would have been. Do you still have any footage from that when you did that?
Yeah, I have a couple of screenshots, and I think I have the add-ons saved. But now I would be very interested to carry on experiments like this on a new technology on Enfusion. It looks a lot better. I would say contemporary.
Yeah, it does look beautiful in Fusion. Everything I've seen of it so far, but well, that kind of leads me into a question I would like to have. Are we going to see Chernarus in Enfusion?
Yeah, that's a question. So, maybe we will see Chernarus in Enfusion. I don't know if people follow me on Blue Sky. Well, I'm there. I don't post there much, occasional photo, but I got a really interesting present from our environment designers. They took the Chernarus orthophoto and elevation data, and they prepared a project because we discussed that it would be interesting to just take the geodata again and create this terrain in Enfusion just to see how it looks like. So that will be my pet project for this year. Classic Chernarus in the new generation of Enfusion. It's perhaps question to Marek Španěl and DayZ team, but what I would really love to see is us, Bohemia Interactive, releasing DayZ Chernarus under share-alike licenses for the other projects. It could be super interesting to see it in Arma 3, of course. But
sorry, for those who aren't big on the licenses and all the rest of it, can you explain what that means?
Of course. Normally, when you take the game and you read the end-user license agreement, it explicitly says you are not to tinker with the data and remix them. The whole modding scene goes against this. So we really wanted to create some legal framework for the modders. So we offered them licenses for reusing and remixing our work as well as their own work. Those licenses are based on Creative Commons licenses for sharing content, and they typically exist in two forms. So we have, for example, Arma public license, which states that something you release can be used or remixed in some way. And we have its share-alike form, which states that if you do a remix, it shall be released on the same license, and others can remix your remix. We typically do this with the terrain data in Arma, and I believe in DayZ as well, because of course we want our community to edit the terrains, but so much of our labor went in that we feel that it would be fair to clearly state that we want even the remixes to be developed further. Of course, this all goes with the demand to list your sources, previous authors, and contributors and be fair with everyone and acknowledge everyone's work. But to us, like, the primary thing was to, here you go. This is the package of our data, and you can freely use them. And if you use this kind of data, you need to share the remixes so that other can benefit from our and your work combined.
So you talked a bit about, like, with your environmental background and all the rest of it. And it sounds like you were involved quite a bit in the very early stages of DayZ with the adoption of the map over to the DayZ standalone game.
I was helping Dean and his miniature team with some guidance over the fixing original Chernarus and practically turning into Chernarus Plus, as we called it, and as it resides in the data until this day. So Chernarus Plus started by us, meaning me, Martin, my prison mate, and two other environment designers we had in Brno. Radim Vítek and Petr Sedláček, and these three gentlemen were very skilled designers behind the Arma 3 terrains. So at some point we agreed that we will take a look at Chernarus Plus, set up the proper new project, clean the data, but also fix some issues. If you look into the Arma 2 version of the game, of Chernarus, occasionally you see some weird surfaces like tarmac in the middle of the woods and stuff. So we were able to address all these. In the process, we also introduced some new locations. I worked on the satellite texture and surface mask, so beautified some of the things or adjusted them to reflect on the new content. And then we passed it onto the DayZ team. Senchi, Mark Gill, both were introduced to the team during like 2013, I believe, and or 2014, and took over. Later, I managed to convince Sumrak to join the company. Of course, he has his own
so we have you to thank for
background.
That.
Excuse me?
We have you to thank for that.
I just did my best to make sure that our projects go as well as possible. So it's always a team effort.
No, I mean, so we have you to thank for Sumrak joining the team.
I know what you mean, but then Marek allowing that, Dean being open to these things. Actually, Senchi was convinced by Marek himself, and when you are getting someone to work for your studio, it's a collaborative effort of many people, and eventually someone from the human resources or back office in general who's helping these people out and setting up contracts and relocating is tremendously important. So at Bohemia, everything is team effort, but yeah, I'm very happy to see that some of these moves on my part led to someone so great contributing to the further development of the games we have.
And he's still there, and he's the creative lead as well. It's it's one of the things that there's a lot of people who like to shit on BI as a company, but I don't agree with them because it's not a perfect company. There's always areas that can be improved on. Any business is like that, but I think Bohemia is one of the flagships of how a company should be run. In today's day and age where we're seeing so many issues with the big AAA game dev companies, we've got this, well, I won't say small, but a mid-sized gaming company that hires modders. The DayZ team's just taken on a whole bunch of them. I'm unsure if Arma does the same. I know Mario's a modder, and he's now the in the Arma team. But I think that's one of the most admirable actions that a game company can take. Is they're listening to their community and they're identifying people who can. This person could do very well working for us.
Well, for us, working with the community is a kind of natural thing. It's part of the mindset because many of us actually come from the community, from its ancient times, Flashpoint, etc. Besides, having a community guy in your ranks comes with plenty of benefits. Of course, these people are often lonely gunners, lone wolves, able and willing to take everything by themselves, from the concept towards realization, production. So sometimes they need to go through some accommodation to the teamwork environment. It usually happens well when they realize that if they cooperate, they can do greater things than alone. And this is something we attempt to foster. But in a game like Arma or DayZ, which are very specific, very unique, having someone with the first-hand experience with not just the game, but also with how it's being created, how it's being designed, someone with more intimate knowledge, means that you have someone who understands you from the beginning. Of course, career developer is perhaps more versatile, can bring in very different qualities, and I always like when we have teams mixed, modder, career developer, and some exotic animal like myself. All of them learning to work together, bring in their expertise, their point of view, and when all these people understand the general vision and the direction of our games, their specialty, each of them brings in very substantial part of the final experience and of what makes our games truly something truly unique and attractive.
Talking about with the community and all the rest of it, it kind of segues into this. And this, looking at the question now, and it's got to be slightly modified, but how has player feedback influenced updates or changes to the Chernarus map since its launch? And this is kind of twofold, because you could almost say that the DayZ map is a community player feedback as well. Dean made this mod, and the mod was so successful that the players loved it, and it saw you guys, okay, we can do something here. And being your baby, yeah, how has that evolution been over the years for you?
So, evolution of Chernarus, of course, we've created and released Chernarus in 2009. For practical reasons, we did not update it ever since in Arma 2. And it was always a huge pain for me to see all those things we could have done better. Things have fortunately changed over time, and but Chernarus remains what it was. So creating Chernarus Plus for a new successful game, which sprouted from a popular modification, to me, it was like vacation on Chernarus. I was really glad I was allowed to do that with the guys, and the Chernarus Plus we passed on to the DayZ team was amazing. So
what were the main changes for people who weren't playing back then?
We fixed a lot of things. So it was like finally, like we did our job as I wanted it to be. Then with Senchi's starting his work, we enrolled to some more changes. I was still around, and for some time, let's say, my design suggestions were still reflected in the development. And this is when the north of the terrain, which in Arma 2 was just a transition to the infinite randomly generated terrain, it actually turned into the real stretch of land, because the valley on the north of Chernarus, it's a valley separating a volcanic landscape and a sandstone plateau, elevated mountain plateau made of sandstone with some interesting rocks. And what Senchi did with certain changes, remixes, and reflection of the setting in the architecture and stuff, he and eventually then Mark Gill created or recreated this north, which is closer to the real thing, features many nice cities, villages. It goes up to the northern edge of the terrain. For example, at the time, Tisi base was created. In reality, there's a chemical troops exercise ground, which is, of course, like well protected behind some barriers, but there's this like a wilderness, like a birches growing like in some savanna or forest steppe, where we played a lot of airsoft. So I knew those places are cool. Sandstone rocks in Kisa. That's why Kisa. So the village of Kisa with its sandstone rock maze was also something we visited. Actually, I took a couple of new team members of the DayZ team there, and this iconic graphic with like undulated birch tree trunks, fog, and some zombie silhouettes. Those pictures were created on that place during that expedition. So that's how Chernarus expanded to the north. Where a lot of real life features were followed and reflected. We had a geographic data to back it up. I helped Senshi by vectorizing the forests so that they would be nicely varied and contain some clearings to be easier on the performance. Then guys, I think it was Sumrak was already around. A few years back, they expanded to the west, filling the stretch of land with some railway and more fictional content like the castles. But yeah, they also at the skiing resort and continue to add details. But at the time I was doing very different things in the company. So to me, it was really nice to see that the map has so much to offer to people, to players. It was
What was
really
the
nice
favorite thing that you saw added to the map during that time that made you really happy?
It was the Northern Valley. It definitely like the area between the original Chernarus and its northern edge, especially in its central and
So like
and western
Severograd
corner.
up to Saria and that right at the top of the map there.
Yeah. To me, it completed the core of Chernarus, and both Senshi and Margil did some amazing job on some of the locations. And of course, we should not forget the artists creating all those new interesting objects, school and stuff. So that was great. I'm not too fond of the Western Edge, because to me it feels like too cramped, too fictional, and I would do it differently. But I understand that at that time there was this huge bond between the team and the community, and the team who was developing the game was reflecting some of the needs and some of the ideas which emerged. And I'm kind of developer who tries to listen to community and take it into account, but I feel that I should like assume my own way, interpret it, and do what would serve the game well.
So the area that you're talking about right now is that area around the old Mishkino and the tents there. And that was one of the most controversial changes, I think, that got made early on, because those Mishkino tents were one of my favorite locations to go if I wanted to scare the absolute shit out of myself, because it was a nightmare. And then once they did the rework, which I actually didn't mind, I loved all the forest and the steep cliffs and the little stream/river that goes through it and that.
Mm-hmm.
But the loss of the Mishkino tents and that sniper valley that was created in the early days of Chernarus Plus was very sad to me, because it was such an iconic location.
Well, it was beyond my control, but I believe that the guys have done their best to create something which would make sense.
Yeah.
In general, to me, it's like it's not bad, like bad design or anything. It's more like too much stuff crammed in attempt to really like offer as much content as possible. Which, on the other hand, I fully respect. what I really miss was our original Chernogorsk gate. You know, there's this cement factory with the railway going through and this conveyor bridge connecting two parts of the factory. It was nice to fly through in the jets and helicopters, and to me it was icon which we've arranged deliberately so that it's visible. It's something you see immediately when you arrive to the town from both its sides.
Do you play DayZ standalone much?
No. I occasionally take a look, but to be honest, I'm more of an Arma player. Plus, as the guys have changed the rules completely and the game developed, it's very far from the mode where I was able to barely survive, and now it takes me like 20 minutes to just develop some pneumonia, some intestinal parasites, high fever, vomiting, bleeding, and when the first zombie feels the sorry remnants of my character, I probably look so disgusting that zombies have to like talk themselves into eating the rest of me, right? And yeah, but just well, last year I made a couple of attempts because I felt really homesick for Chernarus, so I ran Arma 2 version, took a look in the into the DayZ. But as I said, like I haven't seen much of Chernarus because I barely made it off the coastline.
Because the reason I asked that was one of the things that I do miss is back in the very early days, and it again, I'm looking at it with rose-tinted glasses and fond memories and all the rest of it. But Elektro and more so Cherno, with blue square and triple yellow there, that used to be a hive of PvP activity, and it kind of died off. And you still get some there, but it used to be one of those iconic locations with those two big, massive towers that overlooked Cherno, and then you had the hill that you could snipe down into Elektro from. And that all kind of disappeared quite early on in DayZ's lifestyle or life cycle, I should say.
It's really hard for me to answer or contribute to unveiling this because could have been like multiple reasons. From my own experience, as the survival or metabolism rules were expanded, suddenly, like I dare say, for many people, playing Arma with food changed into a very detailed management of your character so that you'd even survive. So it kind of steers your effort away from just shooting others. So this may be one of the reasons. Then it could be the design of the locations, naturally. And when you design a particular place, which is part of the bigger context, the landscape, you can still apply some level design considerations, and sometimes even something which could be considered a mistake or something like not entirely what you should do can offer, let's say, maybe not necessarily well balanced but interesting feature, which might have been the case of the original terrain, and it might have been even deliberately changed so that it's not offering so straightforward ways to exploit the environmental setup. But these questions would be certainly something for Sumrak or Thales, basically the current team. The guys can definitely comment much better on this.
What is your personal favorite location or the feature of Chernarus, and what makes it special for you? You said you fired up the old Arma 2. Where did you go straight away?
Well, it's really hard to say. I occasionally like to return there just to feel the soul of the landscape, because we probably got very lucky in capturing part of it. So after you grow up in such surroundings, it's like remembering your childhood. I'm 45, so I kind of have a right to remember these things. What maybe really is interesting to me is visiting the places which I frequented as a kid with my parents. So I have a map displayed on the background. We often went by public transport to what Zdubovo over Chernogorsk, and we hiked to Mogilevka, original Zub Castle, or we went to Buchta and then back either via Big Kozlova or Goat Hill, or straight down. And we were living where the Komarovo and Balota are. So even like going to Bor, visiting Kozlovka and hiking in the hills around, it just brings in a lot of childhood memories. Besides, I really like the area between Sta and Tulga. It's very picturesque in the real life, and in Tulga, when I was playing Airsoft, there was this derelict remnant of some youth camp and ruin of a villa. It was fortunately bought by someone who's rebuilding, revitalizing the whole area. But this kind of wilderness so close to my hometown always struck me at the time. So these are my favorite places. Of course, I've mentioned the sandstone rocks in the north, but basically, give me a car, give me 2 hours, and give me Chernarus, and I can always find some cool places I love to return to.
What advice would you have for any aspiring map designers or creators looking to make their mark in the industry?
I guess it goes down to the value you can offer as a creator. And obviously there's a lot of competition, and it's hard to break through if all you can offer is just learning some basic things about level design. It's always good to study some more, to learn broader context, and because it makes you more flexible. Naturally, if it's coupled with the technical expertise, it's always great, because to me, it's certainly better to work with someone who can do things compared to someone to whom I need to explain the basics, right? So, if you master the basics, you already have a lot to offer, and some skills can be only acquired by creating stuff. Modding is actually a very good way of at least to learn about how games are made. Now some modding teams can be very professional. Some tool suites and games are very very suitable for even for the beginners. Of course, it all is a very hard and time consuming, so I dare say some passion is required. So game development is not just about accolades and rosy days of playing games and creating content. Sometimes it's about personal conflicts, ego clashes, tensions, deadlines, objective constraints you have to live with. So it's a very demanding environment, and passion is one of the things which, in my opinion, allows you to overcome the hardships and keeps you going. It's also good to have a hobby or something physical you can do, like swimming, hiking, running. I've recently embarked on archery, just to clean up my head. And
I've actually got a viewer question about that as well.
Yeah, yes, please.
But yeah, so is there any maps that you've seen made by modders that you looked at? Because I don't want you to single out any that you didn't think were that good, but was there any map or something that you've seen that you thought and went, that actually shows a lot of promise, or I really like how they did that, or what they did, why they did that.
I have to admit that I've been mostly focusing on the Arma scene, and
Yeah, that's included.
okay. So this morning I had a nice call with Mr. Jujurat, who made some amazing lifelike terrains for Arma 3, and he's currently sitting in Mishek working on our Enfusion powered terrains, and his maps like really caught our eye, and apparently there was a lot of background thinking and lots of good and very professional stuff in his community results. So, but he's definitely not alone. There are many great terrains, many great terrain makers. In Enfusion, of course, a lot of people benefit from the fact that you place a tree in the grass and it already looks good. Yeah, there are numerous terrain projects which certainly provide a lot of quality content.
Now, the last question I have for you, are there any future projects or maps you are currently working on that you can share with us? And the reason I say ask this, and even though I'm more of a DayZ content creator, we are seeing a lot of DayZ content creators paying attention to Arma Reforger, because there are some DayZ style mods for it. So
Yep.
yeah, there's a lot of interest in what's happening with the Reforger engine. Like one of our DayZ maps is already the creator of that, Cabello Live, is in the process of transforming Banov to Reforger.
Yeah,
so,
true. Like, of course, we're in touch. How how could I have forgotten? Kubelo is he's a great guy. Certainly, like I'm super glad he embarked on Enfusion and tries to turn Banov into this, because it will definitely give him the edge once.
Well, it goes back to what you said before about learning new skills. He's increasing his skill set.
And of course, as a creator, you always want to have some cool things, like so. If he feels lured to the new technology, for example, because it looks better, because it allows him to do things he could not do before, I can understand that. It's as a creator, you always want to deliver something which is pleasing for you. Most of the modders and part of us at Bohemia, we develop primarily the things we would like to see in the game ourselves. We want to play with. So if he's motivated to work in Enfusion, is definitely a good sign. And
I honestly don't know why you wouldn't want to, Ivan. Like Enfusion just looks better. Is it better? Yeah, I don't like the running animation myself personally of the characters. I think it looks a bit more clunky even compared to DayZ. But as a creator of a map, I couldn't understand why you wouldn't want to see how your creation looks in the new engine, because it's stunning. It's a stunningly beautiful.
Absolutely.
I remember when the first trailer got released, I was like, this is like what they're showing with Unreal Engine 6 and so on. It's insane.
Yeah, I can only agree. Like I'm often fascinated myself. Like now and then I just just explore the terrain, explore the possibilities, set up some situation in Game Master, and just having fun, and it all looks fantastic. Like our artists, Enfusion programming team, everyone's been doing an amazing job. I'm only watching the show now and then, and it's so pleasing to watch the games grow. Well, regarding my personal projects, there's not much time for it, but as I've mentioned, now we have the Chernarus project in Enfusion, so maybe I'll try to stick some trees to the ground, create a village, or explore a bit of the forest generators Because,
if you could keep us updated on that as well, if you get any footage you can share or anything like that, please let me know, and I'll share it with everyone I can, because I personally cannot wait to see how good Chernarus looks like. I know that it was always limited by the by the limitations of what the engine could allow.
There's already a Chernarus modification, which works particularly well with another mod which recolors the vegetation to the autumn colors. So together, these two add-ons, I spent a great deal of time exploring Chernarus in Enfusion. There are some areas which are not complete. There are areas which are not entirely optimized. When you look at the object count, you can see the stuttering. It definitely shouldn't happen in Enfusion.
Quick question: are we going to be able to access all the areas of buildings in the Enfusion? Because I know that's one of the things that always bugged me with even Chernarus Plus, that there was so many areas shut down simply because it was a mixture of too many spawn points, so the loot would be too scattered. But also, I felt possibly some of the limitations of what the engine could allow when you've got a map this big.
Yeah, it's a performance problem, and
is it going to be a problem on Enfusion as well, or?
We are looking into how to handle the big buildings at the moment. What you can do, obviously, is to model just a part of the interior. Imagine you have a industrial building, some factory, where you have a very complicated interior. It's very costly to even figure it out what's in there and how to arrange or rearrange it, right? So it is expectable that when and if we would introduce a big building, it will come with part of the interior which simply won't be accessible for the practical reason. But you can still do it in a way that allow interesting passage, gets players to interesting places, and facilitate the gameplay. We started working on the new technology with intention to create complete interiors, even if they would be somewhat simplified, as you can see in Reforger. Like, due to the character metrics, you probably don't want to play in too confined spaces or too compartmentalized an interior, but it's certainly something which works in Reforger. Having interiors is perfect. When you start introducing the damage of the buildings and destruction, or when you have big buildings, you naturally are arriving to some boundaries, and you have to make compromises. We are doing our best to, above all, offer nice gameplay. And if you would have to make a compromise to, for example, maintain the scale and depth of things, we will make the compromises. And if we would be allowed to achieve greater fidelity, we'll naturally try our best to push the limits.
I'm excited for it. I really am, because it'd just be great to see it. It's been amazing, even just seeing the evolution of Chernarus from what it was back watching the old, Frankie on PC videos, which that was my introduction to Arma and Chernarus and DayZ, like a lot of people, and just seeing the quality improvements over the time. So I'm excited to see what happens there. Okay, I think that is it for the questions for me. Now we've got some viewer questions, and what the one I wanted to get into was I mentioned it before that Lazian was the one who suggested I should interview you, and he was also the one who was aware of your hobby of archery. And it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek question, so you can answer this one however you want. But he said he'd also like to ask, since you're a big fan of archery, are you going to lend any advice to the DayZ team anytime soon so they could get bloody bows back in the game for everyone?
I'll definitely mention it to the guys. I don't play DayZ that much to miss the feature. I also recommend to get in touch with our DayZ team on the forums, discords, or wherever social media, and pledge for the return of the bows. Sadly, even with my 35 pounds bow, I have very little power over the DayZ development.
I think that was pretty much the only question, because the other ones were ones that were talking about stuff, pros 0.62 and all the rest of it. But just double checking just to make sure. No, I think that is pretty much it for the questions. It was just that one question from Lazian. And again, I want to thank him for making me aware of you. Is there anything else you would like to tell us, or any other comments you'd like to make before we wrap this up, Ivan?
I would like to thank you for inviting me.
It was my pleasure. I love one of my favorite guests of all time was when I got introduced to Matt Lightfoot, a name you probably remember. He was there at the very early days with Dean, working on DayZ, and just hearing, like, I am a DayZ nerd. I'm not really playing it much at the moment. I'm just taking a break from it, and it's good to take a break from everything in your life, folks. But I love DayZ. I love the lore. I love the map you created. Like, there's a guy I know, Chamber Senator, and he's an absolute DayZ and Arma lore nerd. He knows all the lore. It was part of the reason why I asked about the Rifty shipwreck, because there's that little piece of paper you find which talks about the cargo ship breaking apart, and it had a cargo of bananas, and it's just the most weird and wonderful thing that only the true nerds of DayZ are aware of. And like in the smokestack, there's that evil Santa that you guys put all the way down the bottom of it, and all these little Easter eggs. And I love that stuff, and I love speaking to the people who helped create this game that's just got this amazing lore that's diverged from Arma, but they're still so closely intertwined. DayZ still relies heavily on the Arma lore for its influences, and it's been amazing to watch.
Okay, well, glad to hear that the depth is being perceived, because we put a great deal of effort into introducing
the statues in the forest pointing and things like that. There's just all these little things everywhere that you guys just dropped around that just make it so immersive.
That's what you get when you work on the game for such a long time, and I have to say that we at Bohemia are very grateful for this opportunity, because it's not something you normally do. It's not something you normally get, the chance to communicate with your audience, to sell enough units of the game to be able to carry on and expand it, and to remain creative, and live and grow with the community. And sometimes, as I've mentioned, some directions in which DayZ grew were definitely not what I would have intended or expected, but it's kind of natural, and we all should be grateful for this beautiful, entertaining, amazing path to which DayZ have led us. There's some evolution
I just
behind
realised
it.
there is one question that ties into what we're talking about now, the evolution over time. Why do you think Chernarus has evolved with the gaming community? It's still a firm fan favorite, and what do you see for its future in the gaming landscape? We sort of touched on it a bit with how you talk about there's an Arma thing, but it's the beautiful thing with Chernarus is, with DayZ, particularly for the PC crowd, we've got a plethora of modded maps out there. Some really good ones, Sumrax, Namolsk, Banov, Deer Isle, Sakal has just been released as well, Livonia. But everyone always gravitates back to Chernarus. And yes, it's not the same Chernarus that you worked on, but even then, we've seen a few people manage to bring it back a couple of times, how to play the old version of that. And it's just got this place in every DayZ gamer's heart. I'm unsure if it's got the same attachment with the Arma crowd, but why do you think that is for the DayZ crowd, that Chernarus is so intertwined with our love of this game?
Maybe there's some very straightforward explanation in the fact that most people started experience DayZ and its qualities on Chernarus.
Does it make you happy?
It makes me tremendously happy and grateful. Like the fact that you were around when something so important for so many people was created makes me very grateful. Because like we all want to achieve something in our lives, and entertaining someone is no small thing. And if I was able to contribute to some people's life in this way, it may not be like saving people's lives, or it may not be something like a terribly important, but after all, like entertaining someone who's having a hard time, being able to do that and do it well, it probably has great value. And I'm very happy that this has been part of my life.
Take joy in the little things, people, is what I get from that. Yep, you might not be Taylor Swift and millions, if not billions, of Swiftie fans following you everywhere.
Of
but
course. Well, I've definitely been nicer bird.
You brought a lot of joy to a lot of people.
Us developers are always somehow in the background.
I'll take a game dev over Taylor Swift any day.
Yeah, well, it's just we all are glad that if our things work and if they are successful, and we were very lucky, and we should be very grateful for this all. Really, it's a combination of so many factors going well, sometimes against all odds, that we have to remind ourselves that it's a result of like hard work combined with immense luck. And I've mentioned
being locked up by foreign governments.
Sometimes happens.
Blood, sweat, and tears, baby. Game dev's not just sitting in an office tapping away on a keyboard, folks.
Yeah, but back to your question, maybe we have really captured some genius loci. Maybe there's really something immensely special we managed to imbue into it without knowing. Like maybe as with every good thing in our lives, there's a dash of mystery in Chernarus, and if it's there, I really wish us all to be able to keep sensing it.
Well, I hope to God it does come to fruition with Reforger, even if it's just another map that people can use, because I could guarantee it would be way up there, if not supreme, amongst the people playing DayZ mods on the Reforger engine, because there's a certain homeliness to that map. And even though it's evolved a hell of a lot from the bare bones version you released back in 2009 for Arma 2, but it's a game that it's a map that is definitely integral to the success of BI as a company. It revitalized this old game that was you guys were getting ready to move to Arma 3, and then all of a sudden this crazy Kiwi creates this silly mod with zombies, and Arma and Operation Arrowhead shoot back to the top of the Steam charts, all from Chernarus.
True. Yeah, well, it was because of the DayZ mod, But I was very happy to hear from Dean that it all clicked together with this gloomy environment which was present in Arma 2, and one thing led to another. So as I said, we were very lucky with multiple things.
You could say luck, but it's also in my opinion more a testament to the quality of what Chernarus was, the work that went into it, and it was the right map for what Dean had envisaged.
Yeah. Well, certainly doing an honest work, creating something special was one of the prerequisites of success. But it's just sometimes, sadly, just working hard and well is not enough.
Exactly.
And as you say, it's a testimony to certain quality, and the fact that we keep building our terrains so that they could be used more universally and have some intrinsic quality in how they are laid out, what they offer. It's a good recipe, and we finally are formulating the qualities of our map and realizing them and understanding them. In Arma 2, none of us were really thinking about it like that, right? DayZ had to come. Years had to pass. We had to grow older and maybe wiser in some cases, and to be able to dissect and understand the success. Nobody would have thought about it in 2009. Maybe some of us were more enlightened a few years later, but to me, it's like a constant learning, constant figuring things out and understanding better and better the path through which I've passed, and it still does not make me readier for the future, but at least now to the new people in the company, well, sometimes already pretty experienced, spending a couple of years here, I'm more able to explain some of the qualities which they have to pursue to create a Bohemian game.
Ivan, thank you so much, mate. This has been an absolute pleasure for me. Just getting to delve into the history of the development of what is my favorite DayZ map, and pretty much nearly everyone. It's everyone's fallback map. They'll always come back to it. Other maps come out, and they've got end games and all the rest of it, but Chernarus doesn't have any of that, but it still just keeps us all coming back to just keep playing. And I think sometimes the simplicity of it is its beauty. That just attracts us all back time and time again. Thank you so much for turning this vision into such a great map.
Well, thank you. Thanks for your invitation and for your kind words. I have to stress that I have always been a part of a very broad and diverse team of very talented people. So
I loved meeting the DayZ team. It was great meeting them, and I imagine the Arma team is even bigger and even more diverse. And how often does Mario keep on going on about Mexican food and how bad it is in Prague?
Well, maybe you can come and see for yourself next time.
Ivan, all the best, mate, and I wish you all the best with Reforger and everything. And yeah, definitely keep us updated on what's happening with the Chernarus project for Reforger, because I think a lot of people were very interested in seeing that.
We'll try my best.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And the next spotlight interview I will be doing is with the one and only King Alex, DayZ's resident actual former military sniper. He was a sniper in the UK Army, Ivan, and he's been making a lot of sniper-themed videos around DayZ, and I think he's even been dabbling in Arma as well. So you might get to see some really quality stuff coming from an actual former UK military sniper. So, yeah, it'll be good to speak to him. All the best, and ciao for now.
Bye.